So today we had a file submitted to us by a reader, and it's actually a malicious link file, and they wanted to know what it is, how it works, what it's doing, how to analyze it, etc. So we're going to run through that real quick and show all of those aspects and how to analyze it. It's fairly straightforward. I also have another malicious link file that we'll go through real quick. It's doing something a little bit different. So both of these files will be a good representation of how malware is starting to use link files more and more nowadays. It's kind of bringing it back from the past where it used to use it quite a bit. But if y'all have any questions about this analysis or any other analysis that we've done, head over to ringzerolabs.com and feel free to contact us with any questions. But here we see the files that were submitted to us today, both of these shortcuts that say dossier. And unfortunately, this is only part of a piece of malware. So what these shortcut links are used for, if you go down here to properties on them, you'll see that the target is actually command line arguments, or command line arguments that you could put in just in a command prompt. So this is a shortcut, and it's going to actually execute these commands. So it's going to go to wscript, which is the Windows script hosting engine, and it's going to execute vbscript.encode. And what that is just it's another Microsoft thing that allows you to encode scripts and make them harder for people to tamper with. So it's kind of a protection mechanism for scripts. Instead of it being written solely in straight ASCII, it will encode it to illegible text and kind of prevent your users from messing with your scripts. And then it has a target over here on the end, and the target in this case is in the recycle bin, saying that the target is skype.rar. Skype.rar, that should be a RAR archive. However, with this entire command line, it would appear that .rar is just a misleading file extension. So that should be an actual VBS script. And the location for that script would probably be in the user's home directory and then the recycle bin. So pretty much anything you put in your home user's recycle bin. This malware could put it anywhere. It could put it even, in the all users directory for the recycle bin if it needed to kind of hide it in there, as long as it had the appropriate permissions. But the arguments for this shortcut aren't very long. As you see, they all fit here in the target box. Now, it's important to note that target box is only, I think it's about 256 characters long. That's all that can fit in there. And anything past that gets truncated. That'll be important for later. But back to this particular shortcut. So I did a little research, and what I was able to find is that this is actually one of the persistence mechanisms for something called the Forbix worm. So the Forbix worm will have quite a few files with it, including some VBS scripts and other link files. And those in combination with each other will go ahead and set up persistence in the registry. So it'll set up a run key. So every time the machine boots, it'll go ahead and run the malicious link. The malicious link file is pointing to, in this case, skype.rar, but skype.rar is going to be an actual VBS file, and then that's how that VBS file gets launched every time. And from what I understand from this worm, it propagates through the use of USBs and any attached drives to the system. So any attached drives or USBs, it'll dump out all of the files that it needs to those, including an autorun.inf. And what that allows it to do is any removable media like the USBs, if it's plugged into other systems, it's likely to propagate to that system. And here's an example on VirusTotal. As you see in the contained files here, Noviade or Nabu dossier and Nabu link are both part of this archive file, and you can see that there's a photo.jpg, image.jpg, etc., etc. And those JPEGs probably aren't all pictures. One of them is probably a VBS, and that VBS is going to be placed somewhere else. And then the malicious link is going to point to it. So unfortunately, the reader didn't submit all of the files that we need, but just from the simple shortcut and just looking at the properties, we can do a little research and find out that it is the Forbix worm. There's quite a few write-ups on it. Most antivirus should pick it up and go ahead and get rid of it. But now we're going to look at another malicious link, and that's this one that looks like Internet Explorer. And if we do the same thing that we did with the other one, go to properties, we can see that there's a whole bunch of stuff down here in this target box. Whole bunch of stuff. So what we can do is go ahead and copy that out to a notepad, paste that out, and then we can get a clearer picture of what's going on in it. So it's obviously launching command prompt, and then we see that it's setting some variables here. The caret sign in bash scripting is it denotes an escape, so it's just a literal E and a literal N, so that's just a obfuscation technique to make it look weird, but really it's just EN. And then anything with exclamation points on either side of it is denoting a variable. So when that is used, that variable will get called, and we'll see how it's used a little bit later. And then down here, this kind of looks like base 64. It's a little short, and this is where the truncation that I was talking about earlier comes into play. I can't remember how many characters exactly. Looks like it's 259-ish. So that's how many characters fit in that box. However, if we take our link and we throw it in a hex editor, we can see here, here's all the set stuff. And there's the command. So if we go from there and drag it down, we see that there's a whole bunch more text in here. Then we get to the end here. Oops. Forgot that it doesn't like to copy out correctly. Okay, so we just copied a hex string out of Explorer there, and then converted it to ASCII. And you see all the nulls. That's just indicative of Unicode character strings. That's how Windows likes to. Most things you see passed into Windows is going to be this kind of format where the 00 is indicative of the Unicode characters, so we can just get rid of them by replacing all the wax zeros, and there we are. So here this looks a little better. Up here you see it was truncated at this BEA, and then but we still had the rest of all of this. So if we start working our way through this, so BEA, paste that there. Get rid of this. So if we work our way through this script, we can see that it's setting certain variables equal to strings. So basically this is just a replacement. So we can do this manually. It's a little bit of a pain, but sometimes you got to do it. So like I said before, the carets denote an escape character. So escaping E is a literal E, so EN. So we go ahead and replace all of those. And then the next one is HX, and that's ERS. Replace all. DY is hell. Replace all. LX is POW. probably see where this is going. And PS is, we don't have to change PS. We can actually see what it is now. So Windows PowerShell version 1.0, PowerShell, and then echo escape sequences of SAPS. Not real sure why that's there. Could just be for more obfuscation type stuff, just throw in some red herrings. But here you see that it's actually executing this, PS. So the PS is this variable, the PowerShell, and then it's passing in the argument of encode. That is for base64 encoding things and decoding. So in this case, we can be pretty sure that this is in fact base64. So we can go ahead and base64 decode it, maybe, possibly. No? Did I replace something I shouldn't have? Let's do this. Oops. There we go. So one of the replacements I did on these variables up here, it probably replaced something I shouldn't have, but easy enough. So again, base64 decoding, we see that we get all the null characters in there, so we can just replace those like we did before with wax 0, replace it with nothing, and then here we get a clear picture of what the shortcut is going to do. So we're going to launch PowerShell and echo SAPS. That's, here nor there. Launching PowerShell with the encode, we get the base64 decode of this, and then we're creating a new object and downloading from this site here. And now we have our callback domain. So at that site, I'm not going to go to it now. It could be anything. It could be a redirect to a drive-by download. It could be some sort of web exploit. It could just be, trying to get another file, stage 2 on your machine. It could really be anything. But this is the initial infection vector that a lot of malware authors are using now. They'll just send out these malicious shortcuts. It'll look like Internet Explorer, or they'll point it to like a Microsoft Word document icon, so it looks like a document, and then you open it, and it will call out to this domain, and then download stage 2 to your machine. So those are two different malicious link types. The ones that were submitted by a reader are used for persistence mechanisms. Just to recap on those. The persistence is just pretty much a straight command line argument using WScript to point to a file that is located somewhere else on the machine. So this is in addition to another piece of malware. In this case, the Forvix worm is using this type of link. In the case of our second shortcut here, the file itself, this link, is the entire kind of malware stage 1. So it does everything through this target box, which comes out to all of this, which reaches out for stage 2 at this domain. So I hope that's informative. Those are two different types of links, and how you can analyze them pretty easy. Just remember that this box is truncated. So if you try and copy out the data and it's not, if you were to try and base64 decode what you had but it's not coming out, well, there may be more information. Just throw it in a hex editor or something, and you'll be able to get the rest of the information out. But if y'all have any questions on this analysis or any other of our analyses, go ahead and hit us up at ringzerolabs.com, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.